Tyler Matthews had been tossed from so many homes, even he stopped keeping count. At 16, trust was a joke and healing? A lie adults told to sleep better at night. But the moment he stepped onto the frostbitten gravel of Harmony Hills Sanctuary, he knew this wasn't just another cage with fresh paint. It smelled like hay, manure, and something worse, hope. He didn't want it, didn't ask for it. But then he saw BISON, a 2,000-pound legend with scars older than Tyler, eyes darker than the night, and a rage that had nearly killed a trainer. No one could get near him. Except Tyler, the boy everyone had given up on, and the beast no one could control. What happened next would terrify the staff, silence the skeptics, and prove that the broken don't need fixing. They just need each other. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. And BISON knew first. The February morning bit through Tyler Matthews' thin jacket like ice-cold teeth as the transport van pulled up the gravel drive of Harmony Hills Animal Sanctuary. North Carolina hills rolled away in every direction, covered in frost that made the world look brittle and unwelcoming. Perfect, Tyler thought, shifting his hands deeper into his pockets. Just another prison with better scenery, end of the line, kid. The driver's voice carried that forced cheerfulness adults used when they were delivering damaged goods. Tyler grabbed his single duffel bag and stepped onto gravel that crunched under his worn sneakers like broken promises. The sanctuary sprawled before him, weathered red barns, fenced pastures, and a main house that looked like it had seen better. Decades. The smell hit him immediately. Hay, manure, and something else he couldn't identify. Hope, maybe, though Tyler had stopped believing in that particular brand of bullshit 18 months ago. Tyler Matthew? A woman emerged from the main house, her gray-streaked hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore mud-stained jeans and a fleece jacket that had seen more honest work than Tyler's last 3 foster homes combined. "I'm Dr. Sarah Williams, the director here." Tyler studied her face, looking for the telltale signs. The fake smile that never reached the eyes. The barely concealed frustration at getting stuck with another problem kid. The countdown to giving up expression he'd learned to recognize in record time. Instead, he found something unsettling, genuine interest, like she was actually seeing him instead of just another case file. "Yeah," Tyler kept his voice flat, non-committal. "Don't give them anything to work with. That was rule number 1. Let me show you around." Dr. Williams gestured toward the nearest barn. "We're not like other programs you might have experienced. Here, healing happens through connection with the animals, with each other, with yourself." Tyler nearly snorted. Connection. Right, because that had worked out so well before. He followed her past a paddock where horses grazed, their breath visible in the cold air. A few kids his age were mucking stalls, their movements carrying the kind of resigned efficiency that came from court-ordered community service. "That's Marcus." Dr. Williams pointed to a lanky black kid wielding a pitchfork, like he knew what he was doing. "Been here 8 months. Came to us angry at the world. Left his first week with a broken nose from picking fights." "What changed?" Tyler asked despite himself. "Found his horse." "Or rather, she found him," Dr. Williams smiled. "Bella's our rescue mar. Abused, skittish, wouldn't let anyone near her for months. Marcus started sleeping in her stall just so she wouldn't be alone. Sometimes the broken ones know how to fix each other." They walked past chicken coops and goat pens, Dr. Williams explaining the daily routine. Chores started at 6, breakfast at 7. Group sessions, individual therapy, educational programs. Lights out at 10. Standard institutional bullshit, dressed up with animal-themed therapy speak. Tyler was only half listening when something nudged his leg. He looked down to find a goat staring up at him with intelligent brown eyes. The animal was missing her right front leg, but she moved with a confidence that made the disability seem irrelevant. "This is Pepper," Dr. Williams said, her voice softening. "She's sort of our unofficial greeter." Tyler crouched down, and Pepper immediately stepped closer, pressing her head against his palm. Her fur was coarse but warm, and when she looked at him, Tyler felt something he hadn't experienced in months, like someone was actually seeing him, not just the anger and the guilt and the long list of failures. "She doesn't usually warm up to people that fast," Dr. Williams observed. "Maybe she recognizes a fellow screw-up," Tyler muttered, but his hand stayed on Pepper's head. "Or maybe she recognizes someone who understands what it's like to carry more weight than seems possible." Tyler jerked his hand back like he'd been burned. Dr. Williams' words hit too close to home, to the crushing weight in his chest that never went away, the weight of Sarah's empty car seat, of screaming brakes, of everything that could have been different if he'd just been a better driver, a better brother, a better... "Tyler?" A girl's voice cut through his spiral. He looked up to find a Latina girl about his age watching him with sharp, assessing eyes. She was small but carried herself like someone who'd learned early that the world would try to knock her down, so she'd better be ready to swing back. "Elena Rodriguez," she said, extending a hand calloused from work. "Welcome to the island of misfit toys." Tyler shook her hand, noting the firm grip, the way she held eye contact like she was reading his soul. "Tyler Matthew. I know who you are." Elena's smile held no malice, just acknowledgement. "We all know why we're here. Question is, are you going to spend your time feeling sorry for yourself, or are you going to do something useful?" "Elena," Dr. Williams warned gently. "What? I'm being welcoming." Elena's grin turned mischievous. "Come on, Tyler-Matthew- who talks to goats. Let me show you where you'll be sleeping and working. Fair warning, the work's hard, the hours suck. And if you're looking for sympathy, you're in the wrong place." "Elena volunteers as our reality check coordinator," Dr. Williams explained as they walked toward the dormitory, Pepper limping along beside them like she'd appointed herself Tyler's personal escort. The dormitory was basic bunk beds, shared bathrooms, lockers that looked like they'd survived a war. Tyler's assigned bunk was next to a window that looked out over the pastures. Elena plopped down on the bed across from his, apparently content to continue her assessment. "So what's your damage?" she asked with the bluntness of someone who'd cut through enough bullshit to fill a barn. "Elena," Dr. Williams said again, but Tyler held up a hand. "Car accident. My sister died." The words came out flat, rehearsed. He'd said them so many times to social workers and therapists and judges that they'd lost all meaning. Just sounds arranged in a particular order. Elena nodded like he'd told her the weather. "Mine's theft. Multiple counts. Turns out stealing. Food for your little brothers doesn't qualify as a noble crime in the eyes of the law. I'll leave you two to get acquainted," Dr. Williams said. "Dinner's at 6. Elena, show him the rules board." After she left, Elena pointed to a laminated sheet tacked to the wall. The usual list: no fighting, no drugs, no unauthorized leaving of grounds. But at the bottom, in Dr. Williams' handwriting, was something different. "Remember, you are not your worst moment." "She means it, you know," Elena said, catching Tyler's stare. "The whole healing through connection thing. Sounds like hippie bullshit, but ... she shrugged. "Sometimes it actually works." That night, Tyler lay in his narrow bunk listening to the sounds of the sanctuary settling into darkness. Somewhere in the distance, horses whickered softly to each other. Closer, he could hear the gentle bleating of goats, including Pepper, who'd stationed herself in the pen closest to the dormitory, like she was standing guard. Tyler closed his eyes and tried not to think about Sarah's laugh, about the way she used to steal his French fries and claim they tasted better when they were borrowed. He tried not to think about the intersection where everything went wrong, about the split second when he'd looked at his phone instead of the road. But sleep, when it finally came, brought the dreams. They always started the same way: Sarah in the passenger seat, singing along to some pop song he'd complained about, but secretly loved because it made her happy. Then the other car running the red light, the moment of terrible clarity before impact, the silence after. Tyler woke with a gasp, his heart hammering against his ribs. The dormitory was quiet except for the soft breathing of the other kids. Outside, though, he could hear something else, a distant rumbling, like thunder, but the sky had been clear when he'd fallen asleep. He slipped out of bed and moved to the window. The sound came again, closer this time, followed by what might have been the screech of brakes and the crash of metal. Tyler pressed his face to the glass, but the hills blocked his view of the highway. In the goat pen below, Pepper had lifted her head, her ears pricked towards some sound Tyler couldn't hear. Even from this distance, he could see the tension in her small frame, the way she stared into the darkness like she was watching for something that hadn't arrived yet, but was coming. Tyler didn't know it then, but in the frozen woods beyond the sanctuary's borders, a massive bull was struggling to his feet, blood streaming from a gash on his flank, confusion and pain and terror warring in his dark eyes. He didn't know that by morning, his world would be turned upside down by forces beyond his control. All Tyler knew was that Pepper was afraid, and somehow that made the weight in his chest feel a little less unbearable. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new chances to fail or succeed. But tonight, he wasn't alone in his vigil against the darkness. The distant sound faded, and Pepper settled back down, though her head remained raised, alert. Tyler stayed at the window until his feet went numb from the cold floor, watching over a three-legged goat who somehow made him feel less broken. Finally, he crawled back into bed, and for the first time in 18 months, Tyler Matthew fell asleep without seeing Sarah's face in his dreams. The morning brought news that turned Tyler's restless night into prophetic dread. Dr. Williams gathered the residents in the main hall, her usually calm demeanor cracked with tension. Outside, snow had begun falling in thick, heavy flakes that promised to bury the sanctuary under winter's weight. "There was an accident on Highway 74 last night," she announced, her voice carrying the careful control of someone delivering bad news. A livestock transport truck jackknifed in the storm. Most of the animals were recovered, but she paused, choosing her words carefully. A bull escaped into the woods. A very large, very dangerous bull. Tyler felt Pepper shift against his leg where she'd positioned herself during breakfast. The goat had been agitated all morning, pacing the common areas with an energy that seemed to vibrate through her small frame. Now she pressed closer to Tyler, her warm body trembling with something that felt like anticipation rather than fear. "Until the animal is located, we're on lockdown," Dr. Williams continued. "No one leaves the immediate grounds. No exceptions." Alina raised her hand. "How dangerous are we talking?" 2,000 pounds of injured, terrified animal with horns that could kill a grown man. The answer came from Jake Morrison, who'd entered the hall with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. Tyler took an instant dislike to the man's steel gray eyes and the way his hand rested casually on the tranquilizer gun holstered at his hip. "I'm Jake Morrison, Animal Control," he announced. "This bull has a history of aggressive behavior. He's already injured 3 handlers and destroyed thousands of dollars in equipment. We're not dealing with some gentle farm animal here." Tyler watched Morrison's face as he spoke, noting the cold calculation there. This wasn't a man who saw animals as individuals worth saving. This was someone who saw problems that needed eliminating, preferably with maximum efficiency and minimum cost. "What happens when you find him?" The question slipped out before Tyler could stop himself. Morrison's smile held no warmth. "We put him down, quickly and humanely. It's the most merciful option for everyone involved." Pepper made a sound Tyler had never heard before, a low, keening cry that seemed to echo through the hall. She pulled away from Tyler and limped toward the window, pressing her nose against the glass. as if she could see through the swirling snow to something the humans couldn't perceive. "That goat's been acting strange all morning," Morrison observed, his eyes narrowing as he watched Pepper's behavior. Dr. Williams moved protectively toward Pepper. "She's sensitive to changes in weather. Animals often are." But Tyler saw something else in Pepper's posture, in the way she stared fixedly toward the forest. This wasn't weather sensitivity. This was recognition. Somewhere out there in the frozen wilderness, something was calling to her wounded heart. 3 days passed in tense confinement. The snow continued falling, blanketing the sanctuary in pristine white that made the world look deceptively peaceful. But beneath the surface calm, Tyler could feel the electric tension of a place under siege. Morrison's team swept through the forest in grid patterns, their voices echoing through the trees as they called coordinates to each other. Pepper had barely eaten since the announcement. She stood vigil at every window she could reach, her brown eyes fixed on the forest with an intensity that made Tyler's chest tight. He'd started bringing her apple slices and grain, sitting beside her in companionable silence as they both stared into the swirling white. "You know something, don't you?" Tyler murmured on the third afternoon, scratching behind Pepper's ears. The goat leaned into his touch but never looked away from the windows. "Something the rest of us are missing." That evening, as the sanctuary settled into its enforced routine, Tyler watched Pepper pace the common room like a caged animal. She moved to the door, pressing her nose against the glass, then back to Tyler, then to the door again. The pattern repeated until Tyler couldn't ignore the obvious anymore. She wanted out. More than that, she needed out. Tyler glanced around the common room. Alina was absorbed in a book, Marcus was teaching another resident how to play chess, and Dr. Williams was in her office with the door closed. The overnight staff wouldn't do rounds for another hour. "This is stupid," Tyler whispered to Pepper. "Monumentally, catastrophically stupid." Pepper looked at him with those intelligent brown eyes and bleated softly, a sound that somehow conveyed both urgency and trust. Tyler had been trusted exactly once in his life. Sarah had trusted him to drive her safely to her friend's house. He'd failed spectacularly, and that failure had cost everything. But looking at Pepper's expectant face, Tyler felt something he hadn't experienced since the accident, the weight of someone else's faith in him. "If we get caught, I'm blaming you," he told the goat as he slipped on his jacket. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The side door's lock was ancient, more suggestion than security. Tyler had learned to pick locks during his brief stint in a group home where privacy was a luxury earned through skill and cunning. The mechanism gave way with a soft click that sounded thunderous in the winter silence. Pepper was through the door before Tyler could second-guess himself, moving with surprising speed despite her missing limb. She headed straight for the forest, her path unwavering as if she were following an invisible map. Tyler jogged to keep up, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. The snow was deeper in the woods, reaching past Tyler's ankles and making each step a struggle. Pepper seemed unbothered, her 3 legs finding purchase where Tyler slipped and stumbled. She moved with purpose, pausing occasionally to lift her head and sniff the air before adjusting course. They'd been walking for 20 minutes when Tyler heard it, a sound like distant thunder, rhythmic and angry. Pepper's ears pricked forward and she began moving faster, her bleeding taking on an urgent quality that raised goosebumps on Tyler's arms. The forest opened into a clearing where an enormous oak had fallen years ago, creating a natural shelter against the elements. And there, in the shadow of the massive trunk, stood the most magnificent and terrifying creature Tyler had ever seen. Caesar was a mountain of muscle and fury, his black coat gleaming even in the dim light filtering through the snow clouds. Steam rose from his massive body as he pawed the frozen ground, his breath coming in aggressive snorts that spoke of pain and fear. A ugly gash ran along his right flank, crusty with dried blood and obviously infected. Tyler's first instinct was to run. Every rational part of his brain screamed that he was looking at 2,000 pounds of barely contained violence, an animal that could kill him without effort. But then Pepper moved forward, her small form fearless as she approached the giant. Caesar's head swung toward the goat, his dark eyes rolling white with panic. For a terrifying moment, Tyler was certain he was about to watch Pepper die. The bull's massive head lowered, horns gleaming like weapons, and a sound emerged from his throat. That was pure primal rage, but Pepper didn't flinch. She continued her steady approach, bleating softly in what sounded almost like conversation. And incredibly, impossibly, Caesar's aggressive posture began to shift. His head lifted slightly, ears rotating toward Pepper's voice. The pawing stopped. Tyler held his breath as Pepper reached the bull and gently pressed her head against his massive leg. Caesar trembled, his whole body shaking with what Tyler now recognized wasn't rage but terror. This wasn't a monster. This was a creature in pain, afraid and alone in a world that had shown him nothing but cruelty. "Easy, boy," Tyler whispered, surprising himself by taking a step forward. "She's not going to hurt you." "Neither am I." Caesar's gaze fixed on Tyler, and for a moment that stretched like eternity, boy and bull assessed each other. Tyler saw intelligence in those dark eyes, and something else, a loneliness that mirrored his own. They were both refugees from their previous lives, both carrying wounds that went deeper than flesh. Slowly, carefully, Tyler reached into his jacket and pulled out an apple he'd grabbed from the kitchen. "Hungry?" he asked, holding it out with trembling fingers. Caesar's nostrils flared, catching the scent. His massive head stretched forward, close enough that Tyler could feel the heat of his breath. For a heartbeat, Tyler thought the bull might take his hand along with the apple. But Caesar's lips closed gently around the fruit, his teeth crunching through it with surprising delicacy. "Jesus," Tyler breathed. "You're not dangerous at all, are you? You're just scared." As if in response to his words, Caesar's legs buckled. Slightly, exhaustion and blood loss taking their toll. The bull was dying slowly but surely. Without medical attention, infection would claim him within days. Tyler looked at Pepper, who seemed to nod as if reading his thoughts. They couldn't leave Caesar here to die alone in the cold. But bringing help meant exposing their secret, risking not just punishment, but Caesar's life. Morrison would kill the bull the moment he was found. "What do we do?" Tyler asked the goat. Pepper looked at him with those wise brown eyes and took a step back toward the sanctuary. Her message was clear. Sometimes saving someone meant risking everything. As they began the trek back through the snow, Tyler's mind raced with plans and possibilities. He had maybe 6 hours before anyone noticed he was gone. 6 hours to figure out how to save a bull that the world had already condemned to death. Behind them, Caesar settled against the fallen oak, his dark eyes following their retreat. For the first time since his escape, he wasn't alone. And for the first time since Sarah's death, Tyler had found something worth fighting for. Tyler became a master of deception over the next 4 days. He volunteered for every chore that took him near the forest edge, stuffing his pockets with grain, apples, and leftover bread rolls from meals. He memorized the patrol schedules, noting that Morrison's team swept the eastern quadrant between 2 and 4 each afternoon, leaving a precious window of opportunity. Each day, he and Pepper made the treacherous journey to Caesar's hiding place. Each day, the bull seemed a little weaker, his infected wound festering despite Tyler's clumsy attempts to clean it, with bottled water and torn strips from his spare t-shirts. But Caesar had begun to trust them, his massive head lowering in greeting when they appeared, his dark eyes following Tyler's movements with something approaching affection. "You can't keep this up forever, you know." Tyler spun around to find Elena standing behind him in the equipment shed, her arms crossed and her expression unreadable. He'd been gathering medical supplies, antiseptic, bandages, anything that might help Caesar's deteriorating condition. "I don't know what you're talking about," Tyler said, but his voice cracked on the lie. Alina stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Tyler, you disappear for hours every day. You come back covered in snow and pine needles, and that goat follows you around like you're some kind of animal whisperer. Plus, you've been stealing food from the kitchen." "I haven't. 3 apples from yesterday's delivery, 2 dinner rolls from this morning, half a bag of grain from the feed room." Alina's street-smart eyes missed nothing. "I've been keeping track because I thought you might be planning to run, but you always come back. So either you're the world's worst escape artist, or you're hiding something in those woods." Tyler's shoulders sagged. The weight of the secret had been crushing him, and part of him was almost relieved to be caught. "You can't tell anyone." "That depends on what you're hiding." Alina's voice softened slightly. "Tyler, whatever this is, you look like you're about to collapse. When's the last time you slept through the night?" The truth was, Tyler barely slept at all anymore. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Caesar's infected wound, imagined the bull collapsing alone in the cold. The responsibility was eating him alive, but he couldn't abandon Caesar any more than he could bring himself to abandon Sarah's memory. "Show me," Alina said simply. Tyler stared at her for a long moment, weighing his options. Alina was tough, street-smart, and had already proven she could keep secrets. Her own theft charges were evidence of her willingness to break rules for what she believed was right. More importantly, Tyler was drowning, and Alina might be the only lifeline within reach. "If I show you, there's no going back," Tyler warned. "And if we get caught, we'll get caught together." Alina's smile held no fear, only determination. "Besides, I've been dying of boredom in this place. A little danger might be exactly what I need." 30 minutes later, Tyler watched Elena's face as they approached. Caesar's clearing. The bull was lying down when they arrived, a sign that worried Tyler more than he wanted to admit. But Caesar lifted his massive head at their approach, his tail switching in what Tyler had learned was recognition. "Holy shit," Alina breathed, stopping dead in her tracks. "Tyler, that's not just any bull. That's Caesar." Tyler frowned. "How do you know his name?" "Because I've seen him before. My cousin worked at Blackwater Farms before they sold him off. Caesar was their prize-breeding bull worth more than most people's houses." Elena's voice carried awe and sadness. "Luis said Caesar was the gentlest giant he'd ever worked with. Kids could climb all over him, and he'd just stand there like a living statue." "What happened to him?" Elena's expression darkened. "Injury during a breeding session. Tore something in his hind leg. Couldn't perform anymore, so they decided he was worthless. Luis said the new owners were planning to slaughter him for meat, recover some of their investment." Tyler felt sick. "So he was on his way to die when the truck crashed." "Yeah, and now Morrison's hunting him like he's some kind of monster." Elena approached slowly, her movements careful but unafraid. Caesar watched her with curious eyes, his breathing labored. "Look at that wound. It's getting worse. I've been trying to clean it, but I don't know what I'm doing." Tyler's frustration bled through his voice. "He needs real medical attention, but if I tell Dr. Williams ... Morrison will put him down the second he's found." Alina finished the thought, kneeling beside Caesar's massive flank. The bull didn't flinch at her touch, though Tyler could see pain flicker across his dark eyes. "We need help, Tyler. Someone who knows about treating large animals." "Who?" "Dr. Williams would have to report it." "The staff would." "Old Ben," Tyler blinked. "The volunteer?" "Elena, he's like 70 years old. He's also a former ranch hand who's been working with cattle longer than we've been alive." Elena stood, brushing snow from her knees. "I've watched him with the horses. He knows things, Tyler. Things they don't teach in veterinary school." As if summoned by their conversation, a twig snapped in the forest behind them. Both teenagers spun around, Tyler's heart hammering as he prepared to see Morrison's team emerging from the trees. Instead, old Ben stepped into the clearing, his weathered face calm as he took in the scene before him. "Been wondering when you two would realize you needed help," the old cowboy said, his voice carrying the patient wisdom of someone who'd seen everything twice. "That bull's been calling to me in my dreams for 3 nights running." Tyler stared at him, mouth agape. "How did you?" "Son, I've been tracking wounded animals since before your parents were born." Ben approached Caesar with the confidence of someone who understood the language of pain and trust. "Besides, Pepper's been leading a trail a blind man could follow. That little goat's got more sense than half the humans I know." Caesar lifted his head as Ben knelt beside his wound, but didn't try to pull away. The old man's hands moved with practiced efficiency, probing gently around the infected gash. "This is bad," Ben said quietly. "Infections spread deeper than I'd like. Without proper antibiotics, he'll be gone within a week." "Then we get antibiotics," Tyler said desperately. Ben's eyes met his, and Tyler saw both compassion and hard truth in the old cowboy's gaze. "Son, that means involving Dr. Williams, and once she knows, she have to make a choice," Elena finished, "between following the rules and saving a life." Tyler looked at Caesar, at the trust in those dark eyes, at the way the massive bull had begun to depend on their daily visits. He thought about Sarah, about all the choices he'd failed to make when it mattered most. "Then we make the choice for her," Tyler said, his voice stronger than he felt. "We tell her everything and hope she chooses right." Old Ben smiled, and for the first time since arriving at the sanctuary, Tyler felt like he might not be facing this fight alone. The breakdown came at 3 in the morning, triggered by Caesar's fever spiking so high that Tyler could feel the heat radiating from the bull's massive body, even through the winter air. They'd been taking turns sitting with him, Tyler, Elena, and old Ben working in shifts to keep Caesar comfortable and watch for Morrison's patrols. But the infection was winning, and they all knew it. Tyler was alone when Caesar's breathing became labored, each exhale a rattling sound that spoke of organs shutting down. The bull's dark eyes, usually so alert and trusting, had gone glassy with pain and exhaustion. Tyler pressed his hand against Caesar's neck, feeling the rapid, thready pulse that meant time was running out. "I'm sorry," Tyler whispered, his voice cracking. "I don't know how to save you. I don't know how to save anyone." The words opened a floodgate he'd kept sealed for 18 months. Suddenly Tyler was sobbing, his body shaking with the force of grief he'd buried, so deep he'd almost convinced himself it didn't exist. Caesar's labored breathing became Sarah's last gasps. The bull's feverish heat became the memory of twisted metal and broken glass and blood on the dashboard. "I killed her," Tyler choked out, the confession torn from his chest like pieces of his soul. "I was texting. For 3 seconds, I looked at my phone instead of the road. 3 seconds, and Sarah died because I couldn't pay attention for 3 fucking seconds." Elena found him there 20 minutes later, curled against Caesar's side while tears froze on his cheeks. She didn't say anything at first, just sat down in the snow beside him and pulled off her jacket to drape over his shoulders. "How old was she?" Elena asked quietly. 10. Tyler's voice was barely a whisper. She was going to a sleepover at her friend Mia's house. She was so excited she packed her bag 3 days early. She made me promise to pick her up at exactly 9:30 the next morning because Mia's mom was making pancakes and she didn't want to miss them. Elena listened without judgment as Tyler told her everything about Sarah's gap-toothed smile and her collection of stuffed elephants, about how she always stole his fries, but claimed they tasted better when they were borrowed, about the text message from some girl at school that had seemed so important in that moment, but had cost everything. "The other driver walked away without a scratch," Tyler continued, his voice hollow. Sarah was in a coma for 3 days before the machine stopped working. I sat by her bed and promised her I'd be better, that I'd never hurt anyone again if she just opened her eyes. But she didn't. And I learned that some promises are just words you tell yourself to make the pain stop. Old Ben materialized from the darkness like a ghost, his approach so quiet Tyler hadn't heard him coming. The old cowboy settled beside them with a grunt, his weathered hands checking Caesar's pulse before focusing on Tyler. "You want to hear about my worst moment, son?" Ben's voice carried the weight of decades. "I had a ranch once. Beautiful spread. Up in Montana, 300 head of cattle, horses that could read your mind. My wife Sarah, yes, same name as our Dr. Williams, she loved that place like it was alive." Tyler wiped his eyes, listening despite himself. "I gambled it away," Ben continued, his words coming slow and painful. "Started small poker games with the hands, a few bets on the rodeo. But addiction's a hungry beast, and it kept wanting more. I lost the ranch, the cattle, everything. Sarah tried to stay, tried to help me fight it, but watching me destroy everything we'd built, it broke something in her." Ben paused, his eyes distant with memory. "She died of a heart attack 2 years later. Doctor said it was genetic, just bad luck, but I knew better. I knew the stress of losing everything, of watching the man she loved turn into someone she couldn't recognize. That's what killed her, not genetics, me." "How do you live with it?" Tyler asked, the question scraping his throat raw. "By learning that self-hatred is just another kind of addiction," Ben replied. "And like any addiction, it's poison that spreads to everyone around you. You think carrying guilt honors Sarah's memory? You think destroying yourself makes her death mean something?" Elena leaned forward. "Tyler, you were 16 years old. You made a mistake, a terrible, devastating mistake, but you were still just a kid. Kids make mistakes." "Not mistakes that kill people," Tyler shot back. "Sometimes they do," Ben said firmly. "And when that happens, you have 2 choices. You can spend the rest of your life punishing yourself, making sure her death destroys 2 lives instead of 1. Or you can choose to honor her memory by becoming someone who protects life instead of destroying it." Ben gestured toward Caesar, whose breathing had steadied slightly during their conversation. "This bull is dying, Tyler, just like you've been dying for 18 months. The difference is, you can save him. But not if you're so busy hating yourself that you can't see past your own pain." Tyler looked at Caesar's trusting eyes, remembering the moment when the bull had chosen to trust him despite every reason to fear humans. "He's going to die if I don't tell Dr. Williams." "Probably," Ben agreed. "But maybe not. Sarah Williams started this sanctuary because she believes broken things can heal. Question is, do you trust her enough to find out?" Elena stood up, brushing snow from her jeans. "Tyler, I've watched you these past days. The way you care for Caesar, the way you sit with him when he's in pain, that's not the behavior of someone who destroys life. That's someone who protects it." Tyler closed his eyes, feeling the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. It felt different from the crushing guilt he'd carried for so long, heavier in some ways, but cleaner. This was the weight of choice, of responsibility willingly accepted rather than punishment endlessly endured. "If I tell her and she has to report it, then at least Caesar won't die alone and afraid," Elena said. "And maybe, just maybe, she'll surprise us." Tyler opened his eyes and met Caesar's gaze. The bull was watching him with that deep intelligence, as if he understood the choice being made. Trust. It all came down to trust in Dr. Williams, in the sanctuary's mission, in the possibility that doing the right thing might actually matter. "Okay," Tyler said, his voice steadier than it had been in months. "Tomorrow morning, I tell her everything." Ben nodded approvingly. "Sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting the world, son. Sometimes it's asking for help." As dawn approached, Tyler sat with Caesar and felt something he hadn't experienced since Sarah's death hope. Not the desperate, grasping hope of denial, but the quiet, determined hope of someone ready to face whatever came next. For Sarah, for Caesar, for the boy he used to be and the man he might still become. Tyler found Dr. Williams in her office at 7 the next morning, nursing a cup of coffee that had gone cold while she stared at a stack of inspection reports. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she'd slept as poorly as he had, and Tyler wondered if the weight of running a sanctuary for broken souls ever allowed her a peaceful night. Tyler. She looked up with surprise, then concern as she took in his haggard appearance. You look like you haven't slept. Are you feeling all right? I need to tell you something, Tyler said, closing the door behind him. And you're probably going to want to call Morrison the second I'm done talking. Dr. Williams set down her coffee, her expression shifting to the careful neutrality of someone bracing for impact. I'm listening. Tyler had rehearsed this conversation a dozen times during the sleepless night, but now that the moment had arrived, all his planned words abandoned him. Instead, he found himself telling the truth with the raw honesty of someone who had nothing left to lose. I found Caesar. The Theo. Boole. He's been hiding in the woods, and I've been taking care of him. The words tumbled out in a rush. He's hurt and sick and dying, and Morrison wants to kill him, but he's not dangerous. He's just scared and alone, and I couldn't let him die because, Tyler's voice cracked, because I know what it's like to be written off as something that can't be saved. Dr. Williams listened without interruption as Tyler told her everything about following Pepper into the forest, about Caesar's infected wound, about Alina and old Ben's involvement. He expected anger, disappointment, threats of expulsion. Instead, he found something far more unsettling: understanding. How long have you known? Tyler asked when he finished. Suspected for 3 days, Dr. Williams admitted. You've been disappearing regularly. Pepper's been acting like she has a mission, and medical supplies have been going missing from the clinic. I was waiting to see if you'd come to me. Are you going to call Morrison? Dr. Williams was quiet. For a long moment, staring out her window toward the forest where Caesar was hidden. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of someone wrestling with an impossible choice. Tyler, do you know why I started this sanctuary? Tyler shook his head. I was a veterinarian for 12 years. Large animal practice, mainly horses. I was good at my job, really good. I could diagnose conditions other vets missed, perform surgeries that saved lives. I thought that was enough. She stood and moved to the window, her reflection ghost-like against the glass. Then I met Thunder. Tyler's breath caught. Thunder? A thoroughbred stallion, 17 hands of pure power and intelligence. His owner brought him to me with what looked like a simple leg injury. But Thunder was different. Violent, they sighed, unpredictable. He'd injured 3 stable hands and destroyed thousands of dollars in equipment. The parallels to Caesar's story made Tyler's skin crawl. What was wrong with him? Nothing that couldn't be healed with time and patience, Dr. Williams said softly. The leg injury was real, but minor. What Thunder was really suffering from was trauma. He'd been abused, probably for years. Every aggressive behavior was actually a fear response, a desperate attempt to protect himself from further harm. What happened to him? Dr. Williams' reflection seemed to waver. I told his owner that Thunder could be rehabilitated, that with proper care and understanding, he could return to being the gentle, magnificent creature he was meant to be. The owner didn't want to hear it. Thunder was a liability, a problem that needed solving quickly and cheaply. Tyler felt sick. They put him down. I fought for 2 weeks. Called in favors, offered to take him myself, even tried to find him a rescue. But the insurance companies, the liability concerns, the bureaucracy. Thunder died because the system decided he was too damaged to save. Dr. Williams turned back to Tyler, and he saw his own pain reflected in her eyes. I quit veterinary practice the next day and used my savings to buy this land. I swore I'd never again let the system decide that a wounded soul was beyond redemption. Then, you'll help Caesar? Tyler, it's not that simple. Dr. Williams returned to her desk, pulling out a thick folder. This sanctuary operates under strict licensing agreements. We're inspected quarterly. Our insurance depends on following specific protocols. And housing an unauthorized animal, especially one classified as dangerous, could shut us down permanently. Tyler's heart sank. So you can't help him? I didn't say that. Dr. Williams opened the folder, revealing pages of legal documents and regulatory guidelines. But if we do this, we do it right. Caesar would need to be officially surrendered to the sanctuary, which means tracking down his legal owners. He'd need a full veterinary workup, proper documentation, quarantine protocols. That could take weeks. He doesn't have weeks. I know. Dr. Williams pulled out her phone. Which is why I started making calls 3 days ago. Tyler stared at her. You what? Tyler, I've been running this sanctuary for 8 years. You think I can't recognize the signs when one of my residents is risking everything to save a wounded animal? Dr. Williams' smile held both warmth and determination. I've been working with lawyers, veterinarians, and animal welfare organizations to create a legal pathway for Caesar's placement here. Before Tyler could respond, the sound of trucks pulling up outside made them both freeze. Through the window, Tyler could see Morrison's vehicle and 2 others official-looking SUVs with government plates. Inspection, Dr. Williams said grimly, 3 days early. Tyler's blood turned to ice. They know. Maybe this is just bureaucratic timing. Dr. Williams stood, straightening her shoulders like a soldier preparing for battle. Either way, Caesar can't be found today. Can you get him moved? To where? There's an old equipment shed about a quarter mile north of his current location. It's outside our property boundaries, technically county land. If Caesar were to find his way there. Dr. Williams met Tyler's eyes. I never told you about it. Tyler was already moving toward the door when Dr. Williams called his name. Tyler? What you did taking care of Caesar when everyone else had given up on him, that took real courage. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. As Tyler ran toward the forest, he could hear Morrison's voice carrying across the yard, authoritative and impatient. The hunt was intensifying, but for the first time since finding Caesar, Tyler wasn't facing it alone. Dr. Williams was fighting for them. The question was whether it would be enough, moving a 2,000-pound bull through a quarter mile of snow-covered forest while avoiding 3 search teams proved to be the most terrifying hour of Tyler's life. Caesar was weak from fever and infection, his massive legs trembling with each step as Tyler and Elena guided him through the trees while Old Ben scouted ahead for patrol routes. Easy boy, Tyler murmured, one hand on Caesar's neck as they paused. Behind a cluster of pine trees, the bull's breathing was labored, steam rising from his coat in the frigid air. His infected wound had started bleeding again from the exertion, leaving a trail that Tyler prayed Morrison's teams wouldn't notice. Luna, the border collie, had appeared like magic when they began the move, her intelligence immediately grasping the situation. Now she ranged ahead and behind their small procession, her ears constantly rotating to catch sounds of approaching danger. When voices carried through the trees, Luna would freeze, one paw raised in warning until the threat passed. Search grid 7 clear, Morrison's voice crackled through a radio somewhere to their east. Moving to grid 8. That's too close, Elena whispered, her face pale with fear and determination. They're going to see the tracks. Old Ben materialized from the forest ahead, moving with surprising stealth for a man his age. Shed's just ahead, he reported quietly. But we've got a problem. Morrison's expanded the search. They've got dogs coming in from the county. Tyler's heart sank. Dogs would follow Caesar's scent trail directly to wherever they hid him. How long do we have? Maybe an hour. Caesar stumbled, his front legs nearly buckling as a wave of fever-induced weakness hit him. Tyler caught his massive head, looking into those trusting dark eyes and seeing his own determination reflected back. They'd come too far to give up now. "We need to cover his scent," Elena said, her street-smart mind racing through possibilities. "Something strong enough to throw off the dogs." "Pine sap," old Ben suggested, "but it won't be enough. Those are professional tracking dogs." That's when Luna surprised them all. The border collie disappeared into the trees and returned moments later with something in her mouth, a dead rabbit, its fur matted with mud and decay. "Smart girl," Ben breathed, understanding immediately. "She's giving us masking scent." They rubbed the carcass along Caesar's trail, trying to confuse the scent. Markers, while Luna continued her scouting missions. The old equipment shed was exactly where Dr. Williams had said it would be, a ramshackle structure that looked abandoned, but still had most of its roof intact. Getting Caesar inside required all their combined effort. The bull was barely conscious, now his fever spiking despite the cold air. Tyler and Elena supported his massive head while Ben guided his hindquarters through the narrow door. Once inside, Caesar collapsed onto a pile of old hay, his breathing shallow and rapid. "The infection's spreading," Ben said grimly, examining the wound by the light filtering through broken boards. "We need antibiotics, and we need them now." "I can get them," Elena said immediately. "Dr. Williams keeps a medical kit in her office." "If I can, you'll never make it past Morrison's inspection team," Tyler interrupted. "But I might." "Tyler, no." Elena grabbed his arm. "If they catch you, if they catch Caesar, he's dead." Tyler gently pulled free. "Besides, I'm supposed to be at the sanctuary. No one will question why I'm there." The trek back felt endless. Tyler forced himself to walk normally, fighting every instinct that screamed at him to run. He could hear Morrison's voice from the main building, the authoritative tone that meant he was finding problems with the inspection. Tyler slipped through the back door of the dormitory and immediately sensed something was wrong. The other residents were gathered in the common room, their voices tense with worried whispers. Marcus caught sight of Tyler and hurried over. "Where have you been?" Marcus whispered urgently. "Morrison's been asking about you specifically. Wants to know about your behavioral patterns and whether you've shown signs of risk-taking behavior." Tyler's blood chilled. "Morrison suspected something. What did you tell him?" "Nothing. We all said you've been quiet, keeping to yourself." But Tyler ... Quotes Marcus glanced around nervously. "He knows something. The way he's asking questions, the way he keeps looking toward the forest. He's not just inspecting the sanctuary, he's hunting." Tyler needed to get to Dr. Williams' office, but Morrison's voice was coming from that direction. He was trapped, caught between Caesar's desperate need for medical attention and the increasingly tight noose of the investigation. That's when Elena's organizational skills proved their worth. Tyler watched in amazement as she orchestrated a perfect distraction without saying a word. Marcus accidentally knocked over a full coffee pot in the kitchen, sending staff scrambling for towels and mops. Another resident, following Elena's subtle signals, chose that exact moment to have a panic attack in the common room, drawing Morrison's attention. In the chaos, Tyler slipped into Dr. Williams' office. The medical kit was exactly where Elena had said it would be, but Tyler's hands shook as he grabbed antibiotics, syringes, and bandages. He was stuffing supplies into his jacket when footsteps approached the door. Dr. Williams entered, took one look at Tyler's panicked expression, and calmly closed the door behind her. "Morrison knows," Tyler said desperately. "He's asking about me specifically. I know. He's been fishing for information all morning." Dr. Williams moved to her desk and pulled out a manila folder. "Which is why I expedited the legal process. This is an emergency animal seizure order, signed by the county veterinarian. As of 1 hour ago, Caesar is officially under the sanctuary's protective custody. Tyler stared at the document. Does this mean? It means if Caesar is found on sanctuary property, Morrison can't touch him without a court order. Dr. Williams' smile was grim but determined. The problem is getting Caesar here without Morrison realizing we knew where he was all along. Through the window, Tyler could see Morrison emerging from the main building, his face dark with frustration. The inspection was wrapping up, but Tyler could tell from the man's body language that he wasn't satisfied. He's going to expand the search, Tyler realized. County property, state land, nowhere will be safe. Dr. Williams nodded grimly. Which means we have maybe 6 hours to get Caesar medical attention and move him to sanctuary property. After that, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Tyler pocketed the medical supplies and headed for the door. Then we better make those 6 hours count. As he slipped back into the forest, Tyler could hear Morrison's radio crackling with new orders. The hunt was intensifying, but so was their resolve. Caesar wouldn't die alone and forgotten if Tyler had anything to say about it. Behind him, Luna was waiting, her intelligent eyes reflecting the same determination Tyler felt burning in his chest. Together, they raced back toward the shed where a bull's life hung in the balance, and time was running out. The antibiotics were working. Tyler could see it in Caesar's eyes clearer now, more alert, and in the way the bull's breathing had steadied over the past hour. But their relief was short-lived. Luna's sharp bark of warning sent ice through Tyler's veins as Morrison's voice carried through the trees, closer than it had ever been. Tracks here, Morrison called to his team. Fresh ones, leading north toward the county line. Tyler's hands stilled on Caesar's bandages. They'd covered their trail as best they could, but Caesar's massive hooves left impressions that were impossible to completely erase. Through the gaps in the shed's weathered boards, Tyler could see flashlight beams dancing between the trees, growing brighter with each passing second. "Easy, boy," Tyler whispered, his hand on Caesar's neck. The bull's ears were pricked forward, every muscle tense as he sensed the approaching danger. "Stay quiet. Please just stay quiet." Elena and old Ben flanked Caesar's massive form, their faces grim in the dim light, filtering through the shed's broken roof. They'd done everything they could, treated the infection, covered their tracks, found the best hiding spot possible. Now all they could do was wait and hope Morrison's team would pass by. The footsteps stopped directly outside the shed. "This door's been opened recently." Morrison's voice was cold, professional. "Hinges are clean, no rust buildup." Tyler felt Caesar's muscles bunch beneath his hand. The bull could sense the hostility in Morrison's voice, the predatory intent that promised violence. Caesar's dark eyes found Tyler's, and in that moment, Tyler saw something that broke his heart. The bull was asking for permission. Permission to trust, despite every instinct screaming at him to fight. "It's okay," Tyler breathed, so quietly only Caesar could hear. "I won't let them hurt you." The shed door creaked open, and Morrison stepped inside with his tranquilizer gun raised. Behind him, 2 deputies filled the doorway, their hands resting on their sidearms. Morrison's eyes adjusted to the gloom, and when he saw Caesar's massive form, his expression shifted from suspicion to cold satisfaction. "Well, well," Morrison said, his voice carrying the tone of a hunter who'd finally cornered his prey. "There you are." Tyler stood slowly, positioning himself between Morrison and Caesar. "You can't take him. Boy, you're in violation of about 6 different laws right now." Morrison's gun never wavered from Caesar's head. Harboring a dangerous animal, interfering with a lawful investigation, trespassing on county property. "You're looking at juvenile detention until you're 18. "He's not dangerous," Tyler said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Look at him. Really look at him. I see a 2,000-pound animal with a history of violence that's already injured multiple people." Morrison stepped closer, and Tyler could Smell the man's cologne mixed with gun oil and cold determination. Stand aside, son. This ends now. No. The word hung in the air between them like a gauntlet thrown down. Tyler felt Elena and old Ben moving to flank him, their loyalty as solid as stone. But this was his fight, his choice. Caesar had trusted him, and Tyler could not let that trust be rewarded with death. Tyler, Morrison's voice took on a reasonable tone, the kind adults used when they thought they were being patient with a difficult child. This animal is suffering. Putting him down is the merciful thing to do. Merciful for who? Tyler shot back. For Caesar, or for a system that can't be bothered to help something that's been hurt? Morrison's jaw tightened. You have 10 seconds to step aside before I arrest you for obstruction. Tyler looked back at Caesar, meeting those intelligent dark eyes one more time. The bull was watching him with absolute trust, even as the scent of danger filled the air. Caesar could have panicked, could have charged Morrison and the deputies. But he chose to trust Tyler's judgment instead. I'm not moving, Tyler said quietly. Morrison raised his tranquilizer gun, but before he could fire, Dr. Williams' voice cut through the tension like a blade. Mr. Morrison, I strongly advise you to lower that weapon. Tyler spun to see Dr. Williams standing in the doorway, flanked by a woman in expensive suit and a man wearing a veterinarian's jacket. The woman stepped forward, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. I'm Jennifer Walsh, attorney for the Harmony Hills Animal Sanctuary. This animal is under our protective custody as of this morning, pursuant to Emergency Seizure Order number 2847. She held up a legal document that made Morrison's face go white. Any attempt to harm or remove this animal without proper court authorization constitutes criminal interference with a lawful rescue operation. Morrison lowered his gun slightly, confusion replacing his cold certainty. What the hell is this? This is Dr. Marcus Peterson, large animal veterinarian, Dr. Williams continued, gesturing to the man beside her. He's here to provide emergency medical treatment to a valuable breeding bull that was reported stolen 3 months ago. Stolen? Morrison's voice cracked. Old Ben stepped forward, his weathered face carrying a smile that held no warmth. Jake Morrison. Meet Caesar's Thunder Champion bull from the Blackwater Farms theft ring that's been under federal investigation for 6 months. This animal's worth more alive than your annual salary. Tyler watched Morrison's world collapse. In real time, the man's certainty crumbled as he realized he'd been hunting not a dangerous animal, but evidence in a federal case. The bull he'd planned to kill was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and its death would have destroyed crucial evidence. That's impossible, Morrison stammered. The transport manifest said. The transport manifest was falsified. Attorney Walsh interrupted. Part of an elaborate livestock theft and fraud operation. This bull was being transported to slaughter to destroy evidence of his true identity. Dr. Peterson moved past the stunned Morrison and knelt beside Caesar, his professional hands immediately assessing the bull's condition. Infections responding to treatment, he reported. With proper care, full recovery is expected. Tyler felt his knees go weak with relief. Caesar was safe. Not just temporarily hidden, but legally protected. The bull that everyone had written off as worthless was actually priceless, and Tyler's stubborn refusal to give up had saved not just Caesar's life, but potentially exposed a major criminal operation. Morrison holstered his weapon, his face flushed with embarrassment and anger. I was never informed about any federal investigation. Need to know basis, Dr. Williams said simply. And you didn't need to know. As the tension drained from the shed, Tyler felt Caesar's massive head press against his shoulder. The bull was safe. The immediate threat was over, but Tyler knew this was just the beginning. Caesar would need time to heal, both physically and emotionally. And for the first time since Sarah's death, Tyler felt like he might have found his purpose. The next morning brought visitors. Tyler hadn't expected an elderly couple who introduced themselves as Frank and Martha Blackwater, Caesar's original owners. They stood at the edge of Caesar's temporary paddock, their weathered faces etched with a mixture of joy and sorrow as they watched the massive bull grazing peacefully in the sanctuary's winter sunlight. "We called him Thunder back then," Martha said softly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "He was the gentlest giant you ever saw. Kids from all over the county would come to see him at the fair. He won blue ribbons 3 years running." Tyler's chest tightened as he realized what this meant. Caesar Thunder had owners who loved him, who'd been searching for him since his theft 6 months ago. The bull Tyler had fought so hard to save might be taken away just when he was starting to heal. "The insurance company paid out his value when he was stolen," Frank explained, his voice rough with emotion. "We bought the farm next to ours with that money, figured we'd never see Thunder again. But here he is, alive and ... He paused, studying Tyler with sharp eyes. "And bonded to you, from what Dr. Williams tells us." Tyler forced himself to speak around the lump in his throat. "He belongs with you, I know that. I just ... I just wanted him to have a chance." Martha approached the fence, and Caesar immediately lifted his massive head, ears pricked forward with interest. "Thunder," she called softly, using the name Tyler had never heard. "Thunder boy, do you remember us?" The bull's response was immediate and heartbreaking. Caesar moved toward the fence with surprising speed, his deep rumble of recognition vibrating through the air. When Martha extended her hand, he pressed his nose against her palm, his tail switching with excitement Tyler had never seen before. "He remembers," Frank said, his voice breaking. "After everything they did to him, he still remembers." Tyler watched the reunion with a mixture of happiness and devastating loss. This was what Caesar needed: people who knew his real name, who understood his true nature, who'd loved him before the world tried to break him. Tyler was just a troubled kid who'd stumbled into Caesar's story. The Blackwaters were his family. "Dr. Williams told us what you did," Martha said, turning to Tyler. "How you risked everything to save him when everyone else had given up. She said you've been sleeping in his stall, making sure he's never alone." Tyler shrugged, unable to trust his voice. "Son," Frank said, his tone serious, "Martha and I are 73 years old. We love Thunder more than words can say, but we're not young anymore. Running a sanctuary for stolen and abused animals, that takes young hands and strong backs." Tyler looked up, confused. "What Frank's trying to say," Martha continued with a smile, "is that we'd like to make Thunder the foundation animal for a new sanctuary. Our land, our funding, but..." She looked at Dr. Williams, who'd been quietly observing the conversation. "We'll need partners. People who understand that some souls just need time and patience to heal." Dr. Williams stepped forward. "The Blackwaters have proposed a partnership between our sanctuaries. Thunder would stay here, but as part of an expanded program for large animals with trauma histories." Tyler stared at them, hardly daring to hope. "You'd have a job here as long as you want it," Frank said. "Full-time position after you finish school, college tuition if you want to study veterinary medicine. Thunder needs someone who understands what it's like to carry pain that runs deeper than physical wounds." Tyler looked at Caesar Thunder, who was still nuzzling Martha's hand but kept one dark eye fixed on Tyler. The bull seemed to understand that something important was being decided, and his calm presence said he trusted Tyler to make the right choice. "Why?" Tyler asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Because," Martha said gently, "sometimes the most broken souls make the best healers. Thunder was broken when he came to us as a calf. You were broken when you came here. But look what you've both become when someone refused to give up on you." As spring sunlight warmed Tyler's face and Caesar rumbled contentedly at the fence, Tyler felt something he hadn't experienced since Sarah's death: a future worth building toward. 6 months later, Tyler knelt beside Sarah's grave, with dirt under his fingernails and hope in his heart. The headstone read, "Sarah Matthew, beloved sister, stolen too soon." But for the first time, Tyler could look at those words without drowning. "I got accepted to veterinary school," he told her, placing fresh daisies by the marker. "State University. Full scholarship. Dr. Williams says I have a gift for understanding wounded animals." Behind him, Pepper grazed peacefully, her three-legged gait no longer seeming like a disability, but simply her unique way of moving through the world. Thunder had become the sanctuary's gentle giant, helping traumatized animals learn to trust. Again, new residents arrived, monthly kids like Tyler once was, broken and angry and convinced they were beyond redemption. "I still miss you every day," Tyler continued, his voice steady. "But I'm not angry anymore, Sarah. I'm grateful. Grateful for the 10 years we had. Grateful for the lesson you taught me about fighting for what matters." Thunder's low rumble carried across the cemetery as Tyler stood. The bull was waiting by the truck, patient and trusting, ready to return home to their sanctuary where broken souls learn to heal each other. Tyler had finally learned Sarah's most important lesson: love doesn't end with death, it transforms into purpose.